While he may be on his way out, it's time to grade the season that was for Martin Necas.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also do some AHL coverage over at the Caller Times. I am the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a good show for you today on a Thursday edition of the podcast, as we're going to be going over the season that was the 2023-24 for Martin Necas. I'm going to talk about all that today and also give out the grade from the fans from social media on that poll, and along with my grade as well when it comes to what he did for the Carolina Hurricanes in the regular season and in the postseason. But before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Just like I said, we're going to go over the season that was for Martin Necas for the 2023-24 season. And if you take a quick look at his stats in 77 games for Martin Necas, he had 24 goals, 29 assists for 53 points, was a -9, had 8 power play goals, had 3 game-winning goals as well. He had 231 shots, and he had a shot percentage of 10.4%. And his 231 shots actually led the team. The next best was Sebastian Aho at 216, followed by Brady Shea at 185. Now, for Martin Necas, he did have, like I said, 24 goals, which was 4th on the team, only behind Aho, Jarvis, and Teuvo Teravainen. For the assists, he was 8th on the team, behind Aho, Jarvis, Shea, Svechnikov, Burns, and Slavin. And in points, he was only behind Sebastian Aho at 89 and Seth Jarvis is 67, where he finished tied for 3rd on the team with 53, along with Teuvo Teravainen. Now, overall for Martin Necas, I think he had a pretty good season for the Carolina Hurricanes. Yes, it was a dip from where he finished 22-23 season, where he had 71 points. He did go back to 53, so you're almost talking a 20-point drop-off for Martin Necas. But he did miss 5 games this regular season because he got hurt right going into the calendar year of 2024 after getting injured in practice after a collision with defenseman Dmitry Orlov. So he did miss 5 games, at the start of the 2024 calendar year. But overall, other than that, he had a pretty decent season for the Hurricanes. You come into the 2023-24 season after the career year he had the year before, and you think, okay, it's something to build off of from Martin Necas, and the fact that in terms of where he was in his career, he had 28 goals, 43 assists for 71 points in 82 games. So he played a full season in 22-23. Was a +5 compared to his -9. He did have 9 power play goals. He also had 5 game-winning goals, and he had 240 shots for 11.7% of his shooting percentage. So you see where it's like his plus-minus was significantly better. You're talking 14 points better in terms of that. We only had 1 extra power play goal, did have 2 more game-winning goals, but he had like 9 more shots. But, in 5 games, you're almost talking an 18-point difference in the span of 5 games. Like I said, goals-wise, he only dropped off by 4, go from 28 to 24. The assist-wise, he goes from 43 to 29. Now, the thing with Martin Necas was he did see a drop-off in his playing time. It wasn't a significant drop. He did have over 17 minutes in the regular season for the Carolina Hurricanes. It's just when you look at special teams, where in 22-23, he did play a lot of it on power play 1 compared to, you look at the 23-24 season where he played a lot of it on a power play 2. And the thing with him going down to the second power play unit was that they were using him a lot for his stick handling and his speed to try to garner, chances on the second power play, because it makes sense where you don't really want to overload your top line of the power play with all your skilled and probably your best players for the most part. You put them all in the first power play unit, and then your second power play unit's okay. I can see why the Hurricanes wanted to put him there, and I think for him that's kind of where he, I guess, had a disconnect or wasn't really happy with the fact that he lost. I wouldn't say a huge amount of playing time, because you only get a certain amount of playing time when you're on the special teams, but I guess because of the fact that he wasn't getting the first power play minutes compared to the second power play minutes, I think it's where you can see he was kind of just not happy with it. And it makes you wonder if that played a huge part in the fact that, he sees himself as a first line guy, power play one person as well. Maybe he's still trying to fight for a center position, but with the Hurricanes, he's not really someone that you can really put at center. Like, his face-off percentage is usually either the low 40s or somewhere in the 30% range. And it's one of those things where even defensively, he's not really known to be a strong defensive player. And if you're looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, and in that he's really used a lot more for his, they look for really good center depth. And that's kind of the thing. And also playing good defense too. I think that's where it's kind of tough for him, where it's, it's tough for him where his forechecking's okay. Defense is all right for the most part, but he's not the most physical guy either. So you're kind of taking a skilled guy who he would probably thrive on a more pure offensive team that does a lot of more finesse and skill, where if you look at the Hurricanes, it's more of, you've got that they will grind you out. They'll forecheck you to death. They'll back check is really good. A really structured defensive team. And it seems like Martin Necas' defense is okay, but it's not the greatest. Like I said, you did see a little bit more physicality this year from him. Of course, you saw an uptick in penalty minutes, where he goes from 32 the year before to 42 this year. And it's one of those things where it's being a center for the Hurricanes, you got to have that strong defensive side of your game. And I think just Martin Necas doesn't really have that. And I think that's why they'll always make him play the wing. And of course, now if you look at how he plays in Europe or in just in international games, on international ice, he thrives because it's a bigger sheet of ice. You can play him center and he fits into more of the, international style or European style game too. But when it comes to the NHL and how the Hurricanes play, he just doesn't fit that mold of the center they're looking for. So that's why they throw him on the wing. And if you look at how the first line was, I mean, you really, for the most part, you had, Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho, then whoever you had on the left side most of the time. You had Michael Bunting for a little bit, then you got Jay Gensel for a little while as well. And then when, then you have Gensel, Aho, Svechnikov, you kind of get rid of that as your top line. And even then, still a second line with, where Martin Necas was with Jack Drury to a certain point, and then, maybe even just Barry Kotkaniemi. It's just, you can't really see him go to top line minutes. And like I said, for the power play, like they just wanted to use his skill in the second unit rather than the first. And could that be where that's his contention of where he might want to go? Because all we've heard for the last few weeks is the fact that, yes, he's a restricted free agent and the Hurricanes want to keep him, but it sounds like from what Elliot Friedman said on 32 Thoughts, he hasn't publicly said it, but privately it seems like Martin Necas doesn't want to stay in Carolina, and that's kind of where it's like, does the production drop from where he's going from the first power play to the second? Is that where the problem is, and that's why he wants to leave? I mean, if you're him, you might be a little bit frustrated by it, but at the same time, it's like, the Hurricanes were trying to make what's best for the team, and if they thought your skills would be better on the second line to help facilitate that group, then you at least know that they want to try to use you and use your skill sets. And I think it's where it's like, it makes you wonder, like, okay, is this really the problem, or is there something else going on? Maybe is because you heard a season like, okay, guys maybe not buying in and stuff like that. And it makes you wonder, is Martin Necas just one of those guys that didn't buy in? Now, from what we heard, it sounds like Michael Bunting wasn't one of those guys as well, but we don't really know for sure. But it makes you wonder, is Martin Necas maybe has he gotten to the point where he's maybe just tired of the system, or it just doesn't work to him, or maybe he thinks he deserves more money and better more playing time and stuff like that? Because I guess anytime on, like, everyone wants more minutes, but if you're the Hurricanes, you got to figure out how to best utilize your players. And Martin Necas has always basically been a second line guy for most of his time with the Hurricanes. And yeah, he did move to the second power play unit, but still, it's still weird where you're at in terms of everything that's going on with, between him and the team and stuff like that. So it just makes you wonder what's really next for him. And, like I said, he does have some skills. He does have the play that makes it, he does, have the speed. He does have the good stick handle. So you can put him in a London phone booth and he's just good. So I don't know. It's a tough situation to be in for the Hurricanes. And like I said, he does have some good merits to him. He does have the sense for the most part. The stick handles are good. The speed's good and stuff like that. But there's also, I think, a lot of, not a lot of downsides, but there are some clear downsides you can see throughout the game, almost every game. And throughout the season, you kind of see it happening more and more and stuff like that. And like I said, while you do have the good, there's also some bad. And in terms of the bad, that's something we're going to have to talk about, which we will do here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Game Time makes getting NBA final tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. The one thing I really like about Game Time is the fact you can get last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals to find you the best prices for whatever event you're going to. And the fact with their view from the seat, venue options, it's really cool to see the feature where you can see what seats you do have before you even go to the actual event. And we're talking about their last minute deals. You can actually save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, along with concerts, comedy fairs, and so much more. So the Game Time app is more than just about going to games. It's going on to all the things that you enjoy in life. With their flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event itself. And with their zone deals, you can save more by when you choose the section, but you let the Game Time app choose the seat for you. And in terms of the seats, the really great feature about Game Time is the fact that their seat view finder, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So that way before you go to the game or the concert or wherever, there's no obstructive views. You know where you're going to be seeing before you even get to the event itself. That's something that's really, really cool. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA final tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of the first segment, we kind of talked about the good that wasn't Martin Necas, but now it's kind of talking about maybe the things that really kind of I could see where a lot of fans are kind of giving the grade that they gave, and overall something maybe just doesn't click with the Hurricane system, or maybe this is just something where it's just, could it possibly lead to a maybe Martin Necas not staying with the team any longer. And a lot of things that people have always noticed with him is the fact that his speed isn't an advantage, but it's also kind of a disadvantage too, because it seems like he's always the faster player on his line. And it seems like whenever you see him go to the zone, he's way far ahead of his teammates. And it seems like too, like when he's down there, he's kind of by himself for the most part, waiting for his team to get back. And, it's one of those things where, maybe it's, you kind of want to put him with faster guys too, or maybe you make it work to where you have a lot of, a little bit more speed than anything else. But, it's one of those things where you kind of have to try to set up plays for entry zones and stuff like that. Maybe try to find a system that works for your guys down there, and you don't have one guy down there by himself. And the thing too is when he is down there by himself, he tries to do a drop pass. And I know from a lot of other, from fans and from, people watching in terms of media and stuff like that, it's the drop passes to nowhere, which kind of hurts him and the Hurricanes because, if you're trying to do a drop pass, that's fine. But if there's no one there and it leads to a turnover, then that's where you see a lot of the odd meshes from the other teams. The Hurricanes are a really good, strong forechecking team, and they try to put pressure on you in your own zone. But the thing is, if you have drop passes that go to nowhere, it kind of sets you up to where you get on-man rush a lot more, and that's kind of a tough spot to be in when you're trying to defend it, trying to, create offense. And then you got to worry about, defensemen pinching and then getting caught off guard and stuff like that too. So it's definitely a thing where the drop passes really do hurt Martin Necas, and where it kind of hurts the team in terms of their chances too, because then now you're entering the zone, you're trying to get ready to set up, and the next thing you know, the puck's leaving that zone. Now it's going towards your area, and now you're trying to have to back check and play a little bit more defense. I think that's kind of the thing that kind of hurts him the most more than anything else. Like, he got better with it as the season went on, but then kind of reverted back to it. So it's a tough position to be in if you're Martin Necas, and just that you kind of have to find a way to, if you want to, like I said, his stick handling is great, but sometimes he almost stick handles himself into pressure, into situations where he loses the puck, and where it turns into more turnovers as well. So while there is some good to his stick handling, he also kind of stick handles too much. And it seems like with his shooting, it's just he's kind of hesitant to shoot sometimes now. And it's surprising where, like I said, it wasn't a huge drop-off in terms of shots. But you can see where it's like there were some certain points during the season where he could have shot more and had better chances, and he just didn't take them. So it's, I don't know. It's like Martin Necas is such an enigma of a player where, like, I think he's just a very streaky player, honestly. Like, you'll see stretches where he plays really good, and then you'll see stretches where he plays okay, or he's just non-existent, or he's someone who just turns the puck over a lot. And that's kind of the tough spot to be in, where the skill is there, the finish is there, but at the same time, it's like the getting in your head, being hesitant kind of hurts. Trying to do a little bit too much sometimes, but then it turns into, not shooting the puck when you were supposed to, doing a little too much extra passing, or the drop passes to nowhere. It kind of hurts you too. And I don't know. And like I said, it's just a tough situation to be in when you're Martin Necas and the Hurricanes, because like he can thrive, but does he really fit the system? And you're going on so many seasons now where it's like you really want him to do good, but at the same time, it's when does it fully click for Martin Necas and the team? Because like you said, you got 71 points the year before, but it's one of those things where when's it really going to get dialed in? When's it really going to pop off for you and make it work? And I think that's kind of the issue that you're running into with all of that is, you can do it. It's just when are you going to get the full effect? And I think for Martin Necas, I think he's a great player. I don't value him low and stuff like that. It's just, you want to see consistency out of him, and I think for right now, for what we've seen so far, like, it's there. He's got the capabilities, but the consistency level is just, for whatever reason, still being an issue in terms of it working for him. And I think that's the main thing, is where, he's spent 7 seasons in Carolina. His first year was in 17-18, only played 1 game. The following year, he only played 7 in 18-19. And ever since the 2019-2020 season, since turning 21, he's been, playing a lot of, 64 games, 53, 78, 82, 77. You saw 36 points in 2019-20, 16 of those are goals. 41 points in 2021, 14 goals. 21-22, 40 points, 14 goals. And then you see that big jump over. He has 28 goals, 43 assists for 71 points in 82 games. And then this past year, like I said, 53 points, 24 goals in 77 games. And like you look at the season he had in 2020, 2021, he was a plus 25. That was his best ever plus minus was 25 that year. And, it's just, you look at ice time of like 17-17, 16-11, he had, and then 16-11 and 21-22, then 18-25. Yeah, he dropped a full minute from this past year to, where he had 18-25 and 22-23 to 17-21. So you're talking about a minute difference and stuff like that. But it's like in the time on ice, he goes from, 1,510 minutes of ice to 1,336. Of course, that was a lot of being on the power play and stuff like that, where you see a decent amount of drop. But at the same time, it's like, it's just a weird spot to be in because you see he progressively got better, 36 points, 41, 40, 71, and then 53. You can see he's on the precipice of being a star player. It's just, like I said, it's the kind of the consistency isn't really there because you see where he's kind of okay, he's in like the upper 30s, he's hit low 40s, boom, he's in the 70s, and then goes right back into the low 50s. If you're Martin Necas and if you're the Hurricanes, you want to keep him around, but at the same time, it's like the asking price for what I've been hearing, he wants over $6 million because he just got done with a 2-year, $6 million deal, which some get paid $3 million per season. Yes, you still have question marks at Jake Gensel. You still have question marks across the restricted free agents and the unrestricted free agents too. And it's like, yeah, you want to get your unrestricted free agents done, but now Martin Necas is at the top of the priority list because he says he wants to leave. Privately, supposedly he said it, not publicly. And it's like you want to pay him money, you want to make it work, but if he's disgruntled to work, he just thinks he doesn't fit the system. Then like, why do you keep him? And I think that's the part where, for me, where I'm at right now, it's I would love to have him, but if he's disgruntled and he wants to potentially leave, I say you try to find the best offer that works for you as the Hurricanes. And like they've been talking about, they want a star player coming in. If the star player is going, I think that you got to find the guys that fit the system best and make it work. Because it seems like it's just, if Martin Necas doesn't fit the system and he's not happy with his playing time, that I would say is probably the best to move on from it and bring back assets that'll help the team out. It's just, what could that look like? Who really knows? No one knows what Eric Tulsky and Darren York and the Hurricanes front office want to do. But at this point, it's like, if he's not happy, I wouldn't try to force the issue and try to bring him back again another season if he doesn't really want to be here. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, I would love to keep him, but if he's going to be disgruntled and not happy through the whole season, I kind of don't want that around the team right now, where you're in a window of like, you need to win now, but now you're also in the most question marked offseason to where of like, who's staying, who's going. Are we seeing a lot of guys leaving, or are we seeing a lot of new guys come in? Like, who's, are we possibly retaining some of them? Who really knows? And if Martin Necas is one of those guys that's kind of like, I don't know if I don't really want to be here, I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't bring him back if he doesn't want to be here. Like I said, I'd love to keep him, but it just seems like he doesn't want to be. And if you're able to bring assets back and just trade rights to someone else, I think that might be the best course of action to do so. But I think overall in the regular season and the postseason, he did pretty well in the postseason too, for the most part. It's just, as a season as a whole, I think he did okay. And I think the grade that I gave him, I think the fans gave him too, were pretty fair in terms of looking at his, while the points were down, he still did have a pretty decent season overall. So in talking about those grades, we'll do that here in a segment on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hey, Locked On Hurricanes fans. I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you could turn the Hurricanes and run them better than the current, I guess, GM of the team, who might be Eric Tulsky? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, playing through the seasons leading to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Hurricanes fan, you know there is no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances. That's why I think you are going to love this game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDONAHL in the game store, so make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So as we were talking about the end of segment 2, where we're talking about like how he played in the regular season, even in the postseason too, where he did have 9 points in 11 games, probably his best ever point total. Goals were about the same, but did have the best amount of assists as well, but saw a significant drop in terms of time on ice. We also were going to go and talk about his grade from the past season, and I went online to X to get everyone's grades and see what the fans thought of Martin Necas as a whole. So the poll, a little over 100 votes. A big thank you to everyone who did vote on the poll on X. 8% gave him an A, 78% gave him a B, 13% gave him a C, and 1% gave him a D or F. I'm curious to see what that 1% was of like why a D. I'm really curious to see why that was the grade. The C I can kind of see. See, I can kind of see because of the fact that you see a drop off in his point productions and stuff like that, and the drop passes kind of hurt as well. And defensive play is kind of okay, but I think A was pretty good. I know a lot of people said, there's even some comments saying like B plus, A minus B plus, A minus B plus, A and stuff like that. And a lot of things people are talking about is, you look at the fact the production did go down, but now playing a lot of power play 1, played a lot of on power play 2. And it's one of those things where, the points productions were down, but overall they still liked his game for the most part. It's just, it wasn't an A, but it wasn't like a necessarily solid B. So like you see kind of like an A minus B plus type of range. And while it was a 78% for the B, I kind of had a feeling with just all the B pluses I kept seeing in the comments, along with the fact there was a high end B score. I think we're going to call it as a B plus from the fans. And I kind of agree with that score. I agree with that grade, and I would give him a B plus myself. Yes, the production numbers went down for Martin. Overall, like his game was still relatively good for what the opportunities he was given. Like I said, he was on the second power play unit, wasn't on the first. You did see, over 100 minutes dropped of his total time on ice. He did lose an average of a minute of ice time compared to last season where he had over 18. That's when he had 17-21. So you do see a full average of a minute dropped. You're also looking at over 100 total minutes of ice time gone too. And even in the playoffs, you saw a dip in his, average time on ice as well. To where, 22-23, he had over 19 and a half minutes in the playoffs this past season. He had 17 and a half. So, you're talking about a good 2-minute drop-off in the playoffs. You're talking over a minute drop-off in the regular season. So, I could see where it's a thing for Martin Necas where you still had a pretty decent season while you did miss 5 games due to injury. You did have an 18-point drop-off, but you're looking at the fact that you see a whole minute in the regular season, 2 minutes in the playoffs of average ice time going down. Over 100 minutes total of a regular season. So, I think it's definitely a tough situation to be in for him where it's, it hasn't quite worked out in terms of, capitalizing on the opportunities they did have, but he still made it work with what he mostly had for the regular season. So it's definitely a tough year for him overall. And I can kind of see where he could be disgruntled or he might not want to come back. So it's definitely going to be an interesting offseason overall for Martin Necas, but I would agree with the fans. I think for him as a whole, for the opportunities that he had and the fact that he still did pretty decently for the most part, I think a B plus grade does fit for Martin Necas. But, if you're on the YouTube side of things, let me know in the comments. What grade would you give him? Would you give him that B plus or would you give him a different grade? And tell me why. Why you think, he deserves that certain grade and stuff like that. So, but like I said, big thank you to everyone who sent who voted and also gave me their thoughts as well of why they gave him a certain A minus B plus score. So, like I said, if you're on YouTube, make sure to leave in the comments. Let me know what you think of what his grade should be. But that will wrap up this episode of Locked On Hurricanes, talking about the season that was for Martin Necas. If you want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on X at OneCheerZach. You can follow the podcast at L_Hurricanes. If you click the link tree that's in my bio, you can find all my articles and newsletters at the Hockey Writers. Also, all my AHL stuff over at the Calder Times. You can listen and watch my other podcasts and Surgecast on YouTube and, of course, all podcast platforms. And for this podcast, you can find links to the podcast where you can listen. If you leave a 5-star rating and also a review, I might just read it on the show itself. If you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss an episode, hit the thumbs up button to let me know if you like the podcast or not, and make sure to share it with other Caniacs as well, because I want to make them everydayers just like you. We are over 880 subscribers, and we are on the road to 1,000. If we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed Thursday's episode of Locked On Hurricanes, and I hope everyone's a great rest of their Thursday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.